Will old school RuneScape fail again? 0 players online? There will be a never, ever, ever, no case ever where there's 0 players. Like, no matter how bad it is, there's gonna be people playing. There's no way.
As a semi-new player looking into the ecosystem of old-school RuneScape, the vocal backlash against the addition of this game's first new skill, sailing, is somewhat perplexing, especially considering skills are the lifeblood of RuneScape and always have been. They are one of the 3 core pillars that make the game what it is. Therefore, adding a new one has been a constant since all the way back in RuneScape Classic and RuneScape 2 and of course RuneScape 3. It was only in old school where something like this is seen as taboo, too much of a risk. And I've heard the reasons, from it not feeling like a skill to it being akin to the evolution of combat. There are plenty of valid criticisms for its alpha and beta tests, and there are equally many things left to fix and flesh out. However, the latter point, it being a risk akin to the evolution of combat, is more interesting to me because I already have a video on the former. The shadow of EOC has hung over the body of old school RuneScape for its entire life.
Well, this game looks so cool in this angle with the far side.
This so cataclysmic update that eventually birthed OSRS is the bludgeon used against the game-changing ideas. If we stray too far away from whatever we mutually understand old school RuneScape to be, then we will wind up back in 2012, wondering where our favorite game has gone and desperate for it to be brought back.
He's got a full armor
While I can point to the fact that OSRS has been out for longer than it hasn't, that none of the developers who made EOC are working on it, and that nothing within the last 10 years of updates has even remotely resembled anything of the sort. What's more fascinating is that Jagex and its voting player base took a far, far greater risk 9 years ago. One that never had a standard, a precedent to build off of, a completely new idea that, even stranger, kind of failed. Kourend, also known as Zeah, it's confusing and we'll get to that. This was the first continent to ever be added to RuneScape. Not just old school, RuneScape as an IP. Before this, new areas were attached to the main nameless landmass that makes up Gielinor. However, after passing a poll, Kourend was slowly and painfully brought to life, and it was a total disaster. What ended up releasing was a pale shadow of what could have been, in no small part because the development team themselves was very small. They bit off far more than they could chew. Before then, they had whittled away at minor content updates, Nightmare Zone, Zulrah, some UI and compatibility changes. Interestingly, this was somewhat due to the team only recently gaining access to proper development tools, sculpting tools, the ability to create new assets rather than piecing together old ones or repurposing them. If you ever wonder why the Nightmare Zone looks like it does, well, now you don't have to. It's only natural to be excited by this. Now you have the god hand needed to build something great, and as the idiom goes, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. But before we get into how, I want to address terminology. Originally, this continent was called Zeah and housed the enormous city of Great Kourend. This created some bizarre issues, such as the other landmass, the main one, not actually having a name. It was never named. It's not referred to as anything, and due to this, having another one be named is confusing and complicates things unintentionally.
This is off topic, but man, this reminds me, we're like 27th day in old school RuneScape now. I started in this map, and when I first zoomed out, I was like, oh my god, there's so many maps and so many places to go. I'm never gonna get anywhere, but oh my god, looking at this now, like I see and know a little bit of the places. I still haven't been like everywhere, I think, but dude, the map is so cool. I love it. It's beautiful, man. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get to all places soon, huh?
Intentionally. Retroactively, Jagex fixed this by ditching the concept of Zeya and instead sticking to regional names, matching the standard of the mainland. Korend defines a portion of this now denamed landmass, initially Great Korend and eventually including the Kebos lowlands. For simplicity's sake, I will be calling this topmost region Korend because, give me a break, but what happened to Korend, now that's the meat of the story. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this video, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. I want to personally thank the members of this channel for helping support my analysis journey. If you're interested in becoming a member like these fine people on screen, you can do so in the description below. You'll receive all kinds of benefits, such as shoutouts in each video and even access to unscripted members-only content. Thanks again, and back to the video. Retrospectively, it is likely the single most unique event in old-school RuneScape, but at the time was a bit of a catastrophe. This new landmass launched and kind of just sat there. It was clearly underdeveloped and shockingly far too large. An issue that was quickly noted by players was that everything was very big in a disarming way. Big and empty. Look at this screenshot. It looks like OSRS, but it also doesn't. It looks like one of those RuneScape private servers that you sometimes get recommended by a YouTube video where the guy is wearing like pink Bandos armor and his whip has flames buffeting out of it. Something is really, really off, and to figure out what, I went to the original world and tried to find anywhere that looked like this. I mean, this area kind of looks like Glariel's tomb, but no, look how dense the mainland environment is. It's a location made to be walked through and occasionally, if run energy is available, ran through. Meanwhile, this looks like a place to fly over, not a place to walk over, and that might be due to these newly acquired development tools having the ability.
They probably had a really bad sense of making the sizes since this was like the first newly added area, huh? And they just made it big and wanted to make it cool so that everyone runs around it, but it was like too big. And you would just walk around
to span the entire environment in a split second. It isn't unlikely that through working on this project, the developers simply spent so much time in the dev kit that they never noticed this quirk, this issue of scale. And for such a small team that was already spread incredibly thin, working on a shoestring budget and even less time, that might be understandable. To my knowledge, Jagex agreed that it is a problem, one that came about supposedly because the developer who mapped the landscape out on paper scaled things disproportionately and when implemented into the game, made things look empty and too far apart. Maybe this wouldn't have been as problematic if the landscape was filled out, but it wasn't. The content was few and far between, separated by stretches of nothingness and backlit by empty, dark spaces. It's such a strange, surreal experience to fly through Korend as it once was. For those who don't remember or didn't play at the time, like me, the content Korend launched with was the favor system, one new quest, 5-ish activities, and that's it. The region was around 1/4 the size of the original game, and that was all that it released with.
It wasn't fleshed out.
Let's break down what these individual things were for better context. The favor system saw you do menial labor within one of 5 houses in Korend. Incrementally, you'd unlock a different reward based on how much favor you accrue, which on its surface sounds pretty neat. 25% may unlock an activity, 50% an item, and so on. The issue came from the activities that provided favor being incredibly dull, and the fact that you lost favor with other houses that weren't the one you were currently gaining favor with. A confounding, frustrating decision that required players to regrind favor time and time again to use many of the utilities in this new area. Losing favor was shortly removed. In fact, in 2024, far later, an unprecedented event happened, likely because this update didn't release pre-2007. The entire system was removed, period, and all of the activities became doable as soon as you discover them in the game world. But what were these initial activities
Sounds
anyway?
better.
Well, in Shazian, you could tackle organized crime by visiting a location every hour or so and fighting some low-level mobs. In Lovakeng, you could do blast mining, a totally irrelevant form of training until somewhat recently when the experience rates were buffed. In Arceus, you could give books to wizards, and also Blood and Soul Runecraft, while monotonous, still very relevant today. In Hosidius, you could do the Tithe Farm, an activity that was truly terrible on release, but over years saw many changes and eventually
Do you guys like this? I did it a little bit. It was interesting. I think I made it fun because I was trying to do like more lines. And I remember you guys are saying like, oh, Wooks could do like how many line was it? 16 lines or something. I think it was fun because I kept adding challenges to myself. Kind of like Temporas, right?
became more palatable, and in Port Piscarilius, you could do stealing artifacts, granting tons of thieving experience.
Idiots.
This obviously was not ideal, made worse by the fact that none of these things, barring Runecraft, were polled. Crazy, right? Thanks to engaged members of the community such as Gentle Tractor, who became partly responsible with instilling a new vision and structure to Kourend and eventually Varlamore, Jagex employed a 3-phase release plan to introduce more content into Kourend while reshaping the landscape to look less square. The situation was dire. This was a rather heavy blow to credibility, to trust. The game had just begun to see its first wave of growth after its initial release in 2013. This release, as many know, was followed by a huge decline in players because of a lack of content updates. The small dev team at the time had no access to proper tools to create content, yet still managed to stitch together something, anything that would draw attention. And it did, however minor. Eventually, when they were able to make their own assets, updates like Zulrah began to reshape the landscape of PvM, and updates like Kourend challenged the very nature of what old school RuneScape can be. The world of 2007 is no longer alone. Coming just 3 years off the heels of the evolution of combat, and then being delivered something as skeletal and strange as Kourend would reinstill a level of insecurity in the game's future, because while it was finally seeing growth, that came at the risk of long-term success. Because RuneScape has always been defined by its persistence. It doesn't ebb and flow in popularity as sporadically as theme park seasonal MMOs. I see this 3-phase rollout as having been retooled after launch.
Man, it's so sad.
I imagine there being a lot of difficult conversations at Jagex HQ and a lot of needed pep talks to not hesitate with innovating in the face of failure. This is how this tiny development team began to do something remarkable. I think this is the first time in the history of old school RuneScape that we saw the kind of synergy needed between players and developers, curators and creators in paving a better path for longevity. A great team isn't just one that can push out a piece of content on time. It's one that learns from mistakes and iterates on successes. That is part of what I discussed in my prior video regarding Blizzard's current inability to do just that. It is paramount that those who work on a project understand the project, and while this team may have bitten off more than they could chew, fixing Kourend wasn't something that they took lightly. Bruised and beaten, the first changes began to roll out, from graphical reworks to the following year, 2017.
Oh no way, this is the place? This was this? Oh my, this looks so much better.
Starting off with what is likely the most impactful individual content release in the game's short history.
That's crazy.
The Chambers of Xeric, old school RuneScape's
I was wondering where that was.
Raid. One that, for all its flaws, showed remarkable vision and understanding of what old school RuneScape is. It would be relatively easy to look toward World of Warcraft, the most popular MMO, and copy that format, the lockouts, mechanics, corridors, but
Oh my
that's
God,
not
I'm
what
getting
Chambers
nostalgic
is.
feeling.
Instead, it's a
I haven't been
sprawling,
in WoW so
multi-floor
long.
semi-roguelite where you must use many of the skills in RuneScape to solve puzzle rooms, brave
Oh,
mini-bosses,
wow.
and eventually gear up to challenge the final boss, Great Olm, who to this day is considered one of the best and most iconic fights in
This
the
one's
game.
one of the
Much
best
like how
ones.
understanding skill intersectionality created these unique rooms and randomly generated layouts, their understanding of emergent mechanics formed the backbone to this boss fight's longevity, one that is still a core part of a player's account progression 8 years after its release. The Chambers of Xeric also released alongside an addition to the landmass, the Kebos Lowlands, which is actually not Kourend, it's a separate region, but it's connected, and again, just let me summarize. The Farming Guild came out, Mount Karul, not named that initially, and its respective Slayer dungeon and new quests that further gave context to this land's history and its place in the world. But they were just getting started. The visual issues still remained, and while the art style consistencies in old school RuneScape would be a video in and of themselves, it is interesting to see how this new and growing team harnessed their evolving understanding of old school RuneScape's graphics to essentially standardize them across 2 new regions. It's also worth noting that the team itself, over the years, expanded. More artists began to work on old school
Cox is
RuneScape, so
timeless.
fleshing out a territory became far more a reasonable request. We got landmass restructuring and graphical refreshes of multiple houses, Shazian and Hosidius, transforming them from barren monoliths to feeling more lived in and natural. With these refreshes, a host of new quests, spells, and navigational upgrades were added too. What could have been
You guys told me this is like the Gunnar Guild and the Infinity Stones. Like the top tier.
slowly turned into a
tier
reality. It didn't feel like an unfinished
Something like
vestige hanging on the fleshed out main world. It
That's what
felt
you guys told me
like
when
an
I first
aspect
played. I
of
remember.
the main world. The trust lost returned as well, and even increased over time. Intelligent players began to see that even in failing, the content wouldn't be left to rot. I can't overstate just how big of a risk Kourend was. The world of RuneScape is so tightly designed and navigationally driven that creating something as, well, flat as Kourend could have caused irreversible damage to the game. This, to me, was the greatest risk in the history of OSRS, and upon learning more about it, gave me newfound confidence in some of the later ventures that Jagex would take on. None more important than Varlamore, the second new landmass,
God.
which is also technically a part of Kourend and Kebos, but it was only fully connected after it was completed.
Okay, but they learned
it's a
from
new
like
region, okay?
they learned from this mistake, so they should do a little bit better now, right?
Okay. Environments are never completed, not in old school RuneScape. That's part of its beauty. Content is always added when inspired, and while Kourend surely feels better than it did on launch, I wouldn't be surprised to see 10 years down the line a dozen new quests,
is good.
activities, bosses, and mini-games to further flesh out its place. In fact, just this year we saw Yama inhabit the Hellish Chasm at its center. Varlamore, though, was kind of a do-over, a region that, using their pre-existing knowledge and their ever-growing understanding of content development, Jagex could create with confidence, assurance it would
Oh, this is where I got my wine.
work
I
right
love
off the
this
bat.
place.
There would be no need
W,
for
10 out
years
of
upon
10.
years of
10
Varlamore
out of 10.
refreshes.
And if I could give a shout out to this other place, the crabs, the little sand crabs, they make a noise like tink, 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 tink. Bro, that sound was like addicting to this. I love that crab sound. So shout out to the crab over here. Shout out to the wine over here. They helped me get to where I am now.
To keep
Yes,
it
sir.
up to snuff. A new
Wine and
3-phase content
crabs.
cadence was established, with 3 parts of Varlamore releasing
Wait,
over
I
the
also gotta give a shout out right now. I'm in that. This is the place, right? I'm farming thieving. Yo, I love this new place. Holy moly, 10 out of 10.
course of a
10 out
year
of
and a
10.
half. The first part brought with it the Colosseum, the main city it was connected to,
Very
and a
good.
savanna region with a pretty substantial
That's
expansion
Kourend.
to the hunter skill. From a game design
Didn't he talk about Kourend here? Yeah, it's the same thing, right?
standpoint, it's fascinating to see the
That's Kourend, not Valamore. Yeah, but I was saying shout outs to the crab and the Kourend right here because they were talking about it. You ding dongs. You ding dongs.
The growth present when comparing Volumor's Part 1 release with the initial Korend one. Obviously, they have a bigger,
Yeah, I literally
more
said I'm
active
shouting
development
out
team,
to the
but that's
previous
not
area,
the entire
remember?
story, because
You guys are
while
not
true,
listening to
their
me.
entire team isn't relegated to a specific project. This is what a more established understanding of the game and its design, matched with what is likely to be a more thorough development pipeline, leads to. An aesthetically cohesive and relatively bug-free launch that brought with it a host of new content, without biting off more than what the team could chew. In fact, when split into segments, understanding the
barely know this
Volumor
place.
release is pretty straightforward. Each one brings with it 1 or 2 new activities,
Wine
maybe
area?
a minigame, 2 or 3 new PVM
So I
challenges.
will say, am I misplaying the game? I'm probably playing it right, but because you guys told me to turn off the roof system, well, it's way better because I could just click and go into buildings, but I feel like I'm missing the beautiful design of this top because I have not seen this top ever in my life, and this is like a different perspective. It looks cool. The roof looks cool, but if you have the roof on, you can't click and go into the buildings, which sucks. Man, it's a double-edged sword, I feel like. It's a double-edged sword.
Brings
Do you guys play with roof on or off? Probably, I think everyone plays with it off, right? Most of the people. Because it's kind of a downplay to have it on. But I kind of feel bad because these guys put in a lot of work designing these beautiful places and the tops. And I play with it off, so I never see it in my life, right? So kind of sucks. Okay, most of the people are off. Mouse hover. Man, this is kind of like when I used to play full screen. Now I play the mini screen, right? So I guess it's kind of like that. It's just better. It's just better.
with it 1 or 2 new activities, maybe a minigame, 2 or 3 new PVM
But I kinda feel
challenges,
bad 'cause
and
I
a
never see the
small
roof.
expansion to a pre-existing skill. Alongside this, a main story quest that drives the base narrative
have
forward,
roof
and
removal.
multiple
I
side
do.
quests that give flavor to different areas of this region. It's kind of like a demonstration
I
of
thought that was
everything
Pyro Sulfur for a
Jagex and its
second.
player base has envisioned old-school RuneScape to be after over a decade of consideration. If Jagex had to rebuild the entire game from scratch, it would likely operate something like Volumor, because just about every lesson learned was implemented in some way to help Volumor feel like a part of Gielinor. What I find to be especially interesting about it, though, is how it in some ways is a mirror to our mainland, systemically. It very subtly suggests that there are areas to improve on, and here's how. For example, the Colosseum is an iteration on the Fight Caves and Inferno, while it too has
I saw a Hardcore Iron Man legendary video, and Mutz was fighting here. You guys said this is one of like the tough fights that are very risky for hardcore, right? So I can't wait to try it out. How far am I from this one? Like 10 years?
its issues such as the modifier system that felt a little too
100
binary
years?
for some people's tastes.
20 years?
It also improved on what I imagine to be a lot of people's quit points for the Inferno. For one, it's shorter, much shorter, and the difficulty begins quicker, meaning that you don't have to spend 30 odd minutes slogging through nonsense boring waves just to reach the point you died to earlier. Also, it actually offers loot, not just for completing the entire thing, but for completing
Ooh, I like his
individual waves
helmet.
too.
Oh, you guys can't see it. Dude, look how cool that looks. I like that.
While this loot is lost if not claimed and the run forfeited, this gave Jagex the opportunity to add a host of new items to the endgame table. And of course, upon completion, you'd get a backslot item to show everyone just how much of a badass you really are. But there's more. My favorite example is actually Perilous Moons as a mirror to Barrows, one of the most legendary pieces of PVM content in the game. At one point, Barrows was endgame. Now it's essentially the first
I'm
boss
getting spoiler. This is the moon?
you can do. Barrows, for all of its iconic elements, from
Okay,
the
there's like these moons, sun,
awesome armor sets to set effects to
lady with the double
its
whammy.
location in Mauritania, is also annoying
Okay, each time he goes to a new platform, he has like a full something.
as hell. From prayer drains to
I actually
walking
don't
in
have any
circles,
clue what
finding
they're
the right
doing.
doors to fighting relatively boring bosses. It's also
Okay.
without many interesting mechanics in general. You
Okay,
can do
dodge
some
the
tech
swirly.
with mage to
Oh, hit the
avoid being hit,
gong.
but other than that, there
Light the gong up.
really isn't much depth here.
Oh
And
my god, I'm
more
getting
importantly,
spoiled.
for its position in the early game now, it doesn't teach much about PvM as it exists in old school RuneScape today. Now, I would argue it does teach valuable lessons, especially in how navigation and inventory management synergize with successful boss runs, and how to make sure your prayer doesn't
It's a
run out
dual
while
run.
fighting Darok.
What?
Okay. Ah!
Perilous Moons sought to be something more with this Barrow's Brother
Okay.
format, without devaluing them entirely. In fact, the designer of them did something pretty genius, create a new set of bosses that rely on
Oh, it lights up and it fills this up, I think. I think that's what it is,
you
huh?
having incredibly tanky armor to survive. Tanky armor that is most reasonably obtained from Barrows. These two releases, almost 20 years apart, interlinked like missing puzzle pieces. Now, I may be biased because I did Perilous Moons at the perfect time in my account's lifespan, but it was inordinately satisfying going from getting a few tank pieces to using those pieces immediately in an effort to push slightly more difficult and rewarding content. Much like Barrows, Perilous Moons saw you venture deep underground and fight a collection of spirits, each dropping its respective armor.
Am I close to Barrows? Or could I have already done it? Because Goose did Barrow before Jad, but I did Jad before I did Barrow. Was I supposed to do Barrow first? I mean, there were people saying I should do it first for like an item. But I just wanted to go in fast as possible, so I went with Green D-Hide. Holy moly. Wait, should I just skip Barrows then? Motherfucking ass, should I just go Moon? Moon it up! Guards! We're going to the moon! Skip the Barrows! Wait, can I actually skip Barrows? No, dude, but okay, what do I need Barrows for? Tank armor. You need some defensive gear. Send Barrows for tank legs at least. Okay. You can skip if you can pull it off. What if I pull something else off, huh? 1 to 2 pieces. Okay, I mean, if it doesn't take that long, let's do it, huh?
And weapons.
Does it take long to get the pants and everything, or how long does that take? RNG. You know what was crazy? There was a talk we had where you guys are saying Sardako is going to get Bofa. He's gonna start like his Bofa or whatever soon, and I was like, I hope Sardako gets a Bofa after 3 weeks. And you guys are like, oh, 3 week is spoon, 3 week is spoon. And I'm like, what? To me, 3 weeks to get Bofa sounds like a long ass time, and you guys are saying that's good. And I'm like, what? Alright, fuck it. I hope he gets it in 6 months. That's what I said. But wait, what do you mean 3 weeks is short, bro? What are we talking about? That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, I DM'd Sardako last night, and I actually told him I hope he gets it after 6 months. I told him that in the DMs. That's fucked up. Bro, I told him, you're going too fast. I hope it takes you forever so I can catch up, and I get it after like 3 weeks. That'll be hot. That'll be hot.
And wielded together offer transformative set effects. This armor is the opposite of Barrows. Very squishy, yet high in offensive and hybrid bonuses. The intermediary space it inhabits is awesome, and the effects given is the kind of creativity I would.
You're the goat. If you run it with Rune and Zombie Axe, you can skip Barrow grind. Guys, what are you thinking? Are we skipping Barrows or You know, something weird about me, whenever people say you can't do it, I want to do it even more. I don't know why. Especially in games. Like when I was doing JAD and I had one food left and everyone's like, just reset, you can't do it, you can't do it. Like 90% of the people voted that I can't do it. That actually kind of pissed me off and I just try harder even more. I think if you guys didn't say that, I might have just died, but I got annoyed at that comment saying that I can't do it and I like pulled it off, right? But yeah, I had no food or nothing, man. But every time people tell me like you can't do these, I feel like I want to do it even more. Yeah.
Game Gear had. But that's not all. Alongside the more engaging boss fights and generally more diverse and cool environment, you also sustain yourself. This could
Barrels
have
is
been
just fun, do it.
inspired by
Okay.
Chambers
If
of
it's fun, I'll
Zarek,
do it.
actually. The ability to farm your own supplies, your own combat potions, food, and so on, through relatively novel methods of play,
Moon
such as
does look
setting up
cool.
little salamander traps being a pretty interesting method for Hunter, or the fishing that had you angle your net to catch things at an expedited rate. As the rollout for Volamore continued, it wasn't without its missteps either. For example, in Part 2, the Huecoatl early to mid-game group boss was pretty underwhelming, not mechanically per se, but in its rewards, offering virtually nothing relevant until Jagex retroactively buffed rates and majorly changed its signature Dragon Hunter wand drop. The Mastering Mixology minigame was a focal point of scrutiny due to its imbalance, but after being fixed, I find it to be a relatively harmless, if a little flavorless addition. The quests were solid altogether and set up the grand finale well.
What is this? This is Jesse. We need to cook. This is like a whole ass alchemist set
Third part,
here.
the final part, released only a short while ago, and I can confidently say it
Botting
is my favorite
minigame
of the
Pog?
three, because while it still mirrors much of the main game, it
Wait, you can set up bots to do this? Guards? Give me the name of the bots. I need to go to sleep and level up.
It also pushes
Man,
the
I'm getting
envelope, if
nightmares of
only a little
grinding.
bit. When it comes to mirrors, look no
Goodness
further than the
gracious.
finale quest granting you an early game scimitar weapon. I wonder what that's supposed to remind people of. But more interestingly was the new Delve boss that minorly redefines what an endgame encounter can look like. Its delving mechanic is pretty novel and takes liberally from our sister game RuneScape 3 and their Enrage bosses, but tunes it more aptly around the OSRS economy. The new fletching activity made actual content out of a skill defined by clicking 2 items together in your inventory very fast, and the new Slayer mobs offer access to niche upgrades
Holy, these look like fucking candies. What are these? These look delicious.
for early to mid-game accounts that actually has ranged strength bonus on it. Crazy. But why do I bring all
that's
of this
the magic
up? What's
log.
the point? Just to glaze Jagex and say, hey, look, they did it well
But that
this
looks like
time.
candy.
Not really. While I think Volamore was pretty exceptional and now houses some of the best content in the game, there's something more curious at play. And that's because of sailing. I'm sure everyone is aware of this incoming skill and much of the discourse surrounding it, both critically valuable and occasionally uncritically silly. The issue is that sailing has become a hot button topic in much the same way politics at a Thanksgiving dinner has, and fomenting productive conversation
I was just gonna say, it's gonna be like that. It's hard to please everyone. It's anything you do in life too. Someone's gonna be bitter. Some people are gonna be happy. Some people are gonna be not happy. Like it's always like that.
is borderline impossible. Don't ask your parents what they think of Israel-Palestine or whether they think shooting cannonballs should give combat experience. Those who hate it will do so regardless. It could usher in a triple platinum 500,000 concurrent player base golden age and pave the way to the new best raid ever, but skill bad sailing minigame, etc.
Mumbles, thank you for
But
the
also,
prime.
this small vocal subsection of very angry people are drowning out valuable criticism too. It's easy to look at the kind of outcry on Twitter and scoff, brushing it all away, but that's not healthy either. As I outlined in my polling video, this game has always been about communal iteration. The players curate content and the developers develop it. This synergy has, for better or for worse, become the blood that pumps through the beating heart of OSRS. And for as
Well
much
said.
as I may hate many of the sailing criticisms, such as it being like a minigame, but also there's loads of valid criticism too.
Is that a monkey
such
on
as
the shoulder?
movement needing work, the speed of the boats feeling sluggish, the methods of training not hitting flow states in the ways that some modern skilling activities do, and even the rewards may be not perfectly fitting thematically or otherwise. Jimmy made a video critiquing sailing and it did so quite well. It's all valuable and also only exists because of the last decade. Skills have failed polls constantly. Sailing was on the verge of doing so too. The good faith established by the OSRS developers and its players is responsible for the trust instilled in them to see something like this through. In fact, it's crucial. More than that, it's mandatory. There is no RuneScape without iteration and transformation. Live service MMOs don't work in a stasis. We can't release the same set of updates over and over again and expect the player numbers to increase. Right, Blizzard? All of the most transformative content always saw the most interest.
I was thinking about, can I replay what he said? I was thinking about how Oda was saying he's gonna love sailing.
In a stasis. We can't release the same set of updates over and over again and expect the player numbers to increase. Right, Blizzard? All of the most transformative content always saw the most interest, from raids not representing anything from pre-2007 to the very nature of plugins. But even that's not entirely it. RuneScape has always been about skills. That is more core to the game than just about anything else. Without skills, we wouldn't have the sandbox intersectionality allowing for methods of play we love today. It's only in the way skills function does RuneScape find its identity, which is why I was so surprised to see skills persistently fail polls, but an entirely new landmass passing. A new land is very much not in the spirit of RuneScape if you think about it. In fact, it's so not in the spirit of RuneScape, the current landmass doesn't even have a name, yet a new one was added and look where it is now. Look how it is now. That was without precedent, without preceding successes and failures to take inspiration from. Meanwhile, for skills, RuneScape has been getting those for decades, sometimes yearly. There is so much to pull from, so much information to learn from, that while sailing is, yes, a lot broader and more wicked a task, it is undeniably one that already has existing content to use as inspiration. It's also transformative, maybe even evolutionary. That's scary. The E word has, as mentioned at the start of the video, haunted OSRS for years. Reasonably so. After all, without it, OSRS wouldn't exist. But also, it's been over a decade that trust has built, and I think we can extend that to the developers as they have time and time again shown an astute understanding of the game, and maybe even more importantly, the ability to react quickly and change accordingly. They aren't the corporate overlords pushing in monetization surveys or increasing membership prices or whatever else. They are the people iterating mechanically, systemically.
Okay, but to me that looks cool because this guy had the whip and he has that ogre shoulder and it's like, holy shit, it's the same like thing but in a 3D aspect. I'm curious to see how the PvP is in RuneScape 3. Is it bad?
But also, it's been over a decade that trust has built, and I think we can extend that to the developers as they have time and time again shown an astute understanding of the game, and maybe even more importantly, the ability to react
still in
quickly
RS3?
and change accordingly. They aren't the corporate overlords pushing in monetization surveys or increasing membership prices or whatever else. They are the people iterating mechanically, systemically, things that function today better than they ever have, and that's seen by just how readily accessible and lovable the game is. It's not just a mainstay in the public conscious anymore, it's a pervasive competitor to the largest MMO in the world. Updates like sailing, as frightening as they may be, are kind of crucial to establishing old school RuneScape as more than what it is often conflated to be. My very first video, the first script I ever wrote for YouTube, was about nostalgia and old school RuneScape, how nostalgia is a marketing tool, it is a foot in the door, but what keeps people playing is far more evocative and important. Nostalgia is the aesthetic, the music, the twin braziers of the launcher. It's not the endgame being barrows or the best item being the abyssal whip. That has been proven to fail, to kill the game. One of my goals with starting this YouTube channel was to destigmatize the word evolution, because while the evolution of combat was a total disaster, that doesn't mean that evolution is now a sin. It can be done well and poorly. As long as we have a vision and understanding of what makes the game great, then we won't ever lose that. There is no risk of accidentally changing the entire combat system. The last 5 or so videos I made all have been analyzing different parts of what makes old school RuneScape feel like old school RuneScape and how the systems behind that have changed, but the feelings have remained. The early to mid-game progression has been drastically evolved to having half a dozen different paths to go on, entirely new landmasses
this place
to
looks so
explore.
cool.
Yet at no point does someone look at Korend or even Varlamore and not see it as old school RuneScape.
This is Blood Moon.
At no point does someone look at Guardians of the Rift and see a different game. Why can't that extend to a new skill? After 10 years of persistent growth, of many mistakes, but even more fixes and additions and iterations and evolutions, isn't it reasonable to also expand on arguably the most fundamental part of the game, the most identifiably RuneScape element? Because while I think systemic evolution is fine if done well, a new skill doesn't really even do that either. It's iterative and expansive, but it doesn't evolve gameplay, it just evolves perception. My favorite example of this is actually from the recent WoW streamers playing OSRS for the first time. I of course relate to this being a semi-recent convert too, but one of the biggest surprises was in how many of them didn't actually know what old school RuneScape is. I don't mean that as a game, because most gamers know what old school RuneScape is visually, what the music may sound like, but so many of them didn't know that it was receiving updates. They genuinely thought that it was just a re-release of an old MMO that is...
No, I knew that they got updates, and we were always jealous that they had pools and they had a Classic Plus. So we have Classic WoW, but we never had Classic Plus, right? We had Season of Discovery, which is like the first stepping stone, which is kind of cool, but we always knew old school RuneScape had it, and we were jealous. But such as me, Soda, Sardarko, I just hated how it looked like. I thought it was just like a browser game, just click everything, there's no skill involved and whatnot, right? But I tried it out. Turns out there's more. And PvP is actually so fucking fun that I get addicted to LMS, and you guys see me all the time. I say one more, and I play for like 3 hours straight, right? PvP is fun, for me at least. I guess it's subjective, but as well as fighting bosses. I haven't done too many bosses. Because of the OTK event, I got to do the blood. What is it called? Throne of Blood? Blood Throne. I got to do some of the raids from the event, and man, the raids are fun. I like the 1v1 bosses too, like Scurious or Jad. Those are fun. That's what WoW players didn't know about. That there's, actually challenging things. Because we want like hard things, and we just thought it was like a click game where you don't do much, but there's actually a lot of skill involved, and it's impressive how in-depth it is, and that I could repeat everything you guys have done, even though there might be like new skilling shortcuts. It's still a big of a grind, right? And I get to go on the journey, and you guys can look back and say, oh my god, I did that 10 years ago and he's doing it now. Cool to watch, right? And I make this reference where when Tyler or all the League players played WoW and we were watching them play hardcore WoW, it was beautiful to see, because it's like, dang, I remember when I first did my dead mine, I was so excited, and I got to see them do it. I get my old memories back through that. It's so cool, right? Like when other people play your MMO that you've been playing for 20 years, it's quite fun to watch. And I think that's what it is right now. So for me, yeah, I knew about old school RuneScape. It's just, I thought the graphic wasn't pretty for me to play. However, that quickly changed. Like, I love this graphic. I love the knights, and there's like a good feel to the graphic. It works. It works very well. Yeah, it works very well. It has its own charm. There you go. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Still popular, which
no, I actually don't like the HT plugin. Maybe I'm being a bad boy, but I actually like my game looking like Krusty Krab. Like, this is the whole point of this game. Like, the Krusty Krab is what I like, I don't want no, like, HD smoother looking like a butter cake. Like, I like the Krusty Krab, guys, I actually appreciate the Krusty Krab. So I don't play with the HT, you know what I mean? Yeah. I've learned to appreciate it. That's why I like it. That's why there's like WoW people that plays with the plugin, but it's because they don't like the appearance of it. And I get it, because I used to be like that too. I didn't want to play because of the appearance.
Confuse them because, like, how did it get more popular after not receiving substantial updates, especially coming from classic WoW? Why do you think they thought this? My impression is that it's because old school RuneScape's updates have yet to break into the general MMO space. In fact, one of the first times I saw it do so wasn't with a Volamore or a new boss, but rather with a new skill, something everyone can immediately understand because skills in RuneScape are as ubiquitous and unique as the music. For as grindy as skills are, their value is almost ethereal. It's like the glue that holds the game together. And now that a new one is being added, and it's not just woodcutting 2 or combat with extra steps, or some power creep in the form of buffs, it's an entirely new explorable area that is supported by the method of exploration being the skill. I think that evokes a lot of interest from just feeling like an RPG. I'll stake my channel on this. I think more new players, those who've never played OSRS before, will check out Sailing than any other content update so far. That's not to say they'll become addicts or even play past level 30, but that the feeling a new skill evokes is unlike any other form of advertising, especially.
I'm kind of the opposite. Did he say that new players are gonna go check out the Sailing stuff? Dude, I am so locked in on wanting to do like this shit right now. I'm over here like, I'm over here stroking my quest. I got lotion on. Dude, I wanna do like Moon, or I wanna do, what is it, Titan, Twin Titan? We did the torso fight recently. Like I wanna do the fun boss fights. I wanna do the Jad. I mean, the skilling is fun too. It's definitely good that they keep this in and that we go through the roller coaster. Kind of like classic WoW where we do Dead Mines and then we get like the SM gear, which is the Herod set, the red gear, and then the Whirlwind Axe. It's like a little step you do, and I like that. But in retail WoW, you skip through like all the expansion, you just go to the last one and you just play the new content, right? But in this one, I like that we can do all the old content. Like I said, even though there's like new crabs you could hit to level a little bit faster, I guess you could say. Or you could do like the little sand crabs here, right? Or the fossil island crab, which I've got to do all of them. But it's cool that it keeps this edge of the old content. That's what I like about old school RuneScape. And I hope, I guess from this video's takeaway, I hope they don't take away the old stuff for us to just go to the new stuff. If they do that, it's going to become WoW, right? I guess that's the fear, for me at least. Because I think it's cool that we get to go on this roller coaster of all the old stuff. And we just don't skip to the end. WoW, just skip to the end, right? It's never going to happen. Yeah, like I said, there's definitely things that maybe there's some outdated stuff that you could skip over. But for the most part, I think RuneScape kept all the history in it still. Understand? Same page?
One like Sailing. Their interest isn't stemming from liking spreadsheets or clicking simulators, but from a sense of mystery and equal footing. They are just as new to this uncharted territory as everyone else. And for once, new territory isn't explicitly governed by only well-established systems. Skills have always been a part of RuneScape's identity, and if we value what RuneScape was, then we ought to recognize that it only was that way because of the kinds of innovations and additions that were most common, skills being one of them. The vibe that wants to be retained in keeping true to 2007 is one that was only made possible by the updates that preceded it. The version of RuneScape you remember most fondly isn't one that was stuck repeating the same thing over and over again. It was blazing trails and of course flew too close to the sun. Now, much like in 2013, much like with Korend and Volamore, there is the potential for a do-over, a second chance at something newer and better, not by scrapping something or destroying a pre-existing norm or system, but by expanding a definition and iterating on intent. Sailing is undeniably a huge undertaking, one that should be seen skeptically and should be criticized reasonably, but one that every single player should want to succeed. This is an opportunity to use the past decade of knowledge and growth not to cower away from risk, but to confidently surmount it. Think back to a time when you first started playing the game and the parts of it that drew you in most. The most curious mysteries, the most aspirational achievements. Whether you started playing 2 decades or 2 months ago, I think the identity of this game is so clear. It's not maxing an account or doing the hardest raid, it's something more foundational, a demonstration of why we all still aggregate around an old point-and-click adventure game. After all, there is nothing more old school, nothing more RuneScape than looking at the horizon and saying, I wonder what's over there.
Okay, the ending was kind of crazy, sir. I'm gonna link you guys the video. There you guys go. Thank you for the video. Give it a like and I'll subscribe. I do think the ending though, everybody has fun in its own ways, right? It's kind of like how Guzu plays without the quest helper. I play with the quest helper. Other WoW streamers like getting juiced up. Like everyone plays differently and has fun differently, and their goals are different. Some people want to get like 99 strength, some people want to get 99 slayer, and I think that's the cool part. There's like many directions you can go into. And then man, there's some people that only play by tiles. I learned that recently, man. That plays by tiles. Thanks for the react. Yo, Theory Wise OS is here, guys. Make sure to give him a follow, give him some love. Follow his Twitch account, of course. Mods, if you could give a shout out to his channel, that'd be amazing. But thank you for the video, man. Thank you for the video. Well, condensed, articulate video. You put a lot of thought into it. I thought it was great, man. Thank you. The ending was crazy. You wrapped it up very nicely.